ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 8 o'clock main news. In tonight's headlines, His Highness the Emir of Qatar arrives in Kuwait to extend congratulations to His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah on the holy month of Ramadan. His Highness the Crown Prince and His Highness the Prime Minister brief His Highness the Emir on the incidents of law violations that occurred during the past 2 days. His Highness the Emir orders the pardon of a number of prisoners on the occasion of the holy month of Ramadan. The Ministry of Interior says it will bring all those involved in the violation of law to justice in order to safeguard the state's security. And Syrian warplanes targeted groups of gunmen in the Wadi al-Khail area in Arsal, firing 4 rockets. His Highness the Emir of the State of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, and his accompanying official delegation arrived in Kuwait this evening on a fraternal visit, during which he will extend congratulations to His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah on the holy month of Ramadan. His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad was received at the airport by His Highness the Emir, His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al Ghanem, the Deputy Chief of the National Guard Sheikh Mish'al Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al Mbarak Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Prime Minister, the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Deputy Minister of Emir Diwan Affairs Sheikh Ali Jarrah Al Sabah, senior state officials and top commanders of the Army, Police and National Guard. The official delegation accompanying His Highness the Emir of Qatar comprises the Chairman of the Qatar Media Corporation, Sheikh Hamad bin Thamir Al Thani, the Foreign Minister, Sheikh Dr. Khalid bin Mohammed Al Atiyah, Sheikh Joan bin Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, Sheikh Mohammed bin Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the Minister of Youth and Sports, Salah bin Ghanem Al Ali, and the Director of His Highness the Qatari Emir's Office, Sheikh Khalid bin Khalifa bin Abdul Aziz Al Thani. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah hosted an iftar banquet at Dasman Palace this evening in honor of His Highness the Emir of the State of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, and his accompanying official delegation on the occasion of his fraternal visit to the country. His Highness the Emir of the State of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, and his accompanying official delegation arrived in Kuwait this afternoon on a fraternal visit, during which he will extend congratulations to His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah on the holy month of Ramadan. His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad was received at the airport by His Highness the Emir, His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al Ghanem, the Deputy Chief of the National Guard Sheikh Mish'al Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al Mbarak Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Prime Minister, the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Deputy Minister of Emir Diwan Affairs Sheikh Ali Jarrah Al Sabah, senior state officials and top commanders of the Army, Police and National Guard. The official delegation accompanying His Highness the Emir of Qatar comprises the Chairman of the Qatar Media Corporation, Sheikh Hamad bin Thamir Al Thani, the Foreign Minister, Sheikh Dr. Khalid bin Mohammed Al Atiyah, Sheikh Joan bin Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, Sheikh Mohammed bin Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the Minister of Youth and Sports, Salah bin Ghanem Al Ali, and the Director of His Highness the Qatari Emir's Office, Sheikh Khalid bin Khalifa bin Abdul Aziz Al Thani. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah and His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al Mbarak Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Prime Minister, who briefed His Highness the Emir on the incidents of law violations that occurred during the past 2 days. His Highness the Emir stressed that all people must follow the order in order to protect the state's constitutional institutions against any violations, and said that citizens must commit to law in order to preserve national security and stability, condemning the attack on the country's judiciary system. His Highness the Emir expressed the utmost trust of the judiciary system and noted that the judicial authority serves justice for all members of society, grants people their rights and safeguards the country's security, affirming the authority's integrity and fairness. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received this morning at Sif Palace His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah. His Highness the Emir then received the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al-Ghanem. His Highness the Emir also received His Highness Sheikh Jabir al-Mubarak al-Hamad al-Sabah, the Prime Minister. Finally, His Highness the Emir received the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah al-Khalid al-Hamad al-Sabah. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency the President of the Union of the Comoros, Dr. Iki Lulu Dohinian, on the occasion of his country's National Day. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf al-Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency the President of the Union of the Comoros, Dr. Iki Lulu Dohinian, on the occasion of his country's National Day. His Highness Sheikh Jabir al-Mubarak al-Hamad al-Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent a similar cable. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Malawi, Arthur Peter Mutharika, on the occasion of his country's National Day. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf al-Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Malawi, Arthur Peter Mutharika, on the occasion of his country's National Day. His Highness Sheikh Jabir al-Mubarak al-Hamad al-Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent a similar cable. The Deputy Minister of Emir Diwan Affairs Sheikh Ali Jarrah al-Sabah said His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah ordered the pardon of a number of prisoners on the occasion of the holy month of Ramadan. His Highness the Emir also ordered to alleviate the punishment of some prisoners and exempt others from paying fines. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf al-Ahmed al-Jabir al-Sabah received this morning at his Seat Palace Diwan the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al-Ghanem. His Highness the Crown Prince then received His Highness Sheikh Jabir al-Mubarak al-Hamad al-Sabah, the Prime Minister. His Highness the Crown Prince also received the First Deputy Premier and Foreign Minister Sheikh Sabah al-Khalid al-Hamad al-Sabah. His Highness the Crown Prince later received the Deputy Premier, Minister of Interior and Acting Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs Sheikh Mohammed al-Khalid al-Hamad al-Sabah. His Highness the Crown Prince then received the Deputy Premier and Minister of Defence Sheikh Khalid Jarrah al-Sabah. Finally, His Highness the Crown Prince received the Minister of Information and Minister of State for Youth Affairs Sheikh Salman Sabah al-Salim al-Hmoud al-Sabah. The Ministry of Interior said it will bring all those involved in the violation of law to justice in order to safeguard the state's security. The ministry said in a statement that despite warnings issued by the ministry towards law violators, a group of people organized illegal demonstrations yesterday evening, indulging in acts of violence and chaos in Sabah al-Nasr area. The ministry noted that demonstrators blocked the road, burnt trash containers, attempted to destroy police vehicles and caused harm to the state's properties. The statement said the demonstrators also threw Molotov cocktails at the central prison while burning nearby trees before fleeing the scene, adding that the police force were able to arrest some of those involved. Policemen called on demonstrators at the site to stop their acts of violence that could pose danger to families living in the area, yet the groups continued to create chaos and threw rocks at the police. Former Iraqi Prime Minister Ayad Alawi called on incumbent Nouri al-Maliki to give up his bid for a third term in power or risk the dismemberment of Iraq. Alawi added that Iraq needed a roadmap that prioritized reconciliation and the building of institutions, and that this was more important than the issue of who will be the next Prime Minister. For his part, al-Maliki rejected a chorus of such calls since militants of a group now rampaged through vast areas of Iraq and declared a medieval-style caliphate in the land they control in Iraq and neighboring Syria. Meanwhile, Iraqi forces constructed today defensive positions northeast of Baghdad in anticipation of an attack from militants who overran large parts of territory north of the Iraqi capital. Lebanon's official national news agency reported that Syrian warplanes bombed gunmen today inside Lebanese territory on the border between the two countries, adding that shortly afterwards Syrian aircraft carried out 2 further raids on the same area. There was no immediate reports of casualties. The Lebanese army confirmed airstrikes in border areas but made no mention of their target. The border is long and porous and has proved an easy crossing point for smugglers, refugees and fighters. An army statement said that 2 weeks ago Lebanese army forces carried out raids in the area targeting militants. Israeli military authorities lifted the siege on the city of Hebron last night. However, the tense situation on the ground continues with an unprecedented series of attacks by settlers against Palestinians who are calling for international intervention. Daily tension among the Palestinians and the daily demonstrations and danger continue to stir in different Arab cities inside Israel in the wake of the vicious murder of 16-year-old Mohammed Abu Khdeir in Jerusalem last week. Meanwhile, Israeli security officials said that Israeli army will respond powerfully against Gaza rockets. More in this report by Fatma Abdel Karim from Ramallah.
Daily tensions among the Palestinians and the daily demonstrations and anger continue to stir in different Arab cities inside Israel in the wake of the vicious murder of Mohammed Abu Khdeir, 16 years old, in Jerusalem last week. Meanwhile, Israeli security officials said the army will respond powerfully against Gaza's rockets. However, observers believe Israel's security apparatuses and image is at stakes now with the rising tension.
The continuous Israeli aggression is there because no one is stopping Israel. The international community, the United States, is relating to the Israeli occupation as it is a normal thing that can be continued. It is not. The Palestinian lives is being hit, is being taken.
After 23 days of closure, the Israeli military ordered the lifting of the siege over Hebron. Nevertheless, the settler violence continue and the attacks of settlers against Palestinians are witnessing an unprecedented rise across the West Bank and in Jerusalem as the attacks target young children and youth, as well as holy sites and private property with sabotage and destruction.
What's happening is that it is a sign that the Palestinians reach to a point to say stop. It's enough, and we have nothing to lose, and it is a sign that the next huge explosion will be against this settler attacks, and that the Palestinian will use all the means to defend their rights, their lives and their dignity.
Today, Palestinians are calling for listing settler groups as terrorist groups with the rise of settler violence against Palestinians, and are pushing the leadership to take up the complaint to the United Nations. The rising levels of tension in the Palestinian streets are a result of accumulated pressures, which seem to be pushing the situation to the edge and Israel's image to the worst. Fatma Abdel Karim, Kuwait TV, Ramallah, Palestine.
Ukrainian security officials said yesterday they were in full control of the former rebel stronghold of Sloviansk after retaking it on a victory which President Petro Poroshenko said could mark a turning point in the fight against the separatists. Newly appointed Defence Minister Valerie Heleti was with the troops which entered the recaptured town. Government forces routed pro-Russian rebels in the flashpoint city in eastern Ukraine on Saturday, which for months was the separatist stronghold of Slavyansk, the strongest one for militants fighting government forces in mainly Russian-speaking eastern Ukraine. Its recapture represents Kiev's most notable military victory in 3 months of fighting, in which more than 200 Ukrainian troops have been killed, as well as hundreds of civilians and rebels. Ukrainian troops were greeted in the center of the city by a group of local residents. Many of the hundreds of armed rebels who fled Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, 20 kilometers to the south, went to Donetsk, the main industrial hub in the region, where separatists first declared a People's Republic and declared their wish to join Russia. Kuwait's relations with Zimbabwe date back to when the Southern African Republic gained independence in 1990, and since then efforts have been ongoing to boost these relations over the years. Kuwait will always recall Zimbabwe's significant role in supporting the UN Security Council resolutions during the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait in 1990. The Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development has also been a key player in financing development projects that have had a major impact on Zimbabwe's economic and social development. Serglab has more on the friendly bilateral relations in this report.
The State of Kuwait and the Republic of Zimbabwe benefit from cordial bilateral ties, and Kuwait established its embassy in Harare in 1992, and Zimbabwe followed suit on the opposite side 4 years later.
We have met with a number of financial institutions here who have expressed a lot of interest in assisting us in developing a number of areas. You have mentioned health, education, yes, agriculture, infrastructure, and so we will be following up all these contacts that we have established. Our Minister of Finance is here. He has also been very busy meeting various financial institutions here. So we are looking forward to a lot of good work together. His Excellency the President has also received a number of heads of financial institutions here in Kuwait and also in the Arab region.
Political cooperation has been ongoing since 1990, during the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, when Zimbabwe was president of the United Nations Security Council, putting it at the forefront of condemning the Iraqi invasion.
On the political and diplomatic front, we've also had a warm relationship with Kuwait. Kuwait in the 90s established a diplomatic mission in Harare, and we have a diplomatic mission here, a resident ambassador here, and as you recall that during the time that Kuwait was invaded by Iraq, Zimbabwe was one of the members in the Security Council, and we supported the state Kuwait without any reservations whatsoever. In fact, during the period of the occupation and the war, Zimbabwe was president of the Security Council, and by sheer coincidence, I happened to be the ambassador at the time in New York, and I was chair of that of the Security Council during that crucial month of February, during the occupation and the war, which led to the ejection of Iraq from Kuwait, and of course the role that we played together also helped to bring us closer together as two very fraternal countries. So we have enjoyed extremely good relations between our two countries, and we are looking forward to even greater things ahead.
On the economic level, cooperation has been through the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development, with a number of projects completed under this partnership and more cooperation expected in the fields of infrastructure, energy production, food security and mining. The deep history of the bilateral relationship between the State of Kuwait and the Republic of Zimbabwe dates back to the 1980s, and this visit was used to promote and strengthen this relationship and further promote cooperation in several fields. From Bayan Palace, this is Sarah Glubb reporting for English News.
And finally, moving to local financial news, today's trading session at the Kuwait Stock Exchange incurred losses, settling in the red zone. Meanwhile, the price index read 6,980.84, shedding 23.47 points. The weighted index read 473.97, losing 1.33 points, and the KSX 15 index stood at 1,158.5. declining by 4.69 points. The number of trades amounted to 1,713. Value of traded shares stood at just over 5,208 Kuwaiti dinars, and the volume of the exchange stocks 72,234. For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. And to recap tonight's news, here are the headlines once again. His Highness the Emir of Qatar arrives in Kuwait to extend congratulations to His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jabir Al Sabah on the holy month of Ramadan. His Highness the Crown Prince and His Highness the Prime Minister brief His Highness the Emir on the incident of law violations that occurred during the past 2 days. His Highness the Emir orders the pardon of a number of prisoners on the occasion of the holy month of Ramadan. The Ministry of Interior says it will bring all those involved in the violation of law to justice in order to safeguard the state's security. And Syrian warplanes targeted groups of gunmen in the Wadi al-Khail area in Arsal, firing 4 rockets. Thank you for joining us.